And most importantly, you realize that you are enough, just as you are, without needing to act in order to belong. Benítez often speaks of looking beyond the illusions that surround us. She invites us to see beyond the surface, beyond what society dictates as normal or correct. Similarly, she invites us to look beyond the illusion of being loved through performance, through fulfilling expectations. She urges us to question the social constructs that limit us, and challenges us to live honestly, to stop living to please and start living to be free. This is the true challenge, to undo the veils we've built around ourselves and stop living as though our worth depends on others' approval. On this path to liberation, the concept of being loved loses its weight. You cease doing things solely to be accepted, solely to receive the applause of the world. Instead, you start valuing being true to your essence, your values, and your truth. The love you need isn't found in others' expectations, but in your relationship with yourself. By letting go of the act of pleasing, you begin to connect with the deepest parts of yourself. There, you find the peace you've always sought, not in external approval, but in your authenticity. The question that changes everything is this: do you really want to be loved for what you're not, for what you don't feel, for what you don't think? Or do you prefer to be loved for your genuine self, even if that means not pleasing everyone, even if it means making others uncomfortable? The answer is clear. The price of authenticity is the discomfort of some, but that discomfort is a sign that you're living on your own terms, without yielding to external expectations. It's living unapologetically, without explaining yourself, for being who you are. This is the great lesson Benítez offers us. True liberation lies in looking beyond the illusions imposed on us, in challenging the invisible structures that dictate how we should be, and ultimately, in finding the courage to live without asking for permission. Being kind, when it involves swallowing anger, lowering your gaze, staying when everything inside is screaming that it's time to go, isn't goodness. It's exhaustion, repressed fire, the silencing of a voice that, if heard, could change so much. Imagine this scene. A woman in a work meeting has a brilliant idea, but hesitates. She listens to everyone. No one proposes anything new. With her heart racing, she raises her voice, barely. She speaks softly, shares her idea, but hedges. Maybe this isn't so important. The room falls silent. A man speaks next, repeats almost the same thing, but with confidence, and everyone applauds him. She smiles and says nothing. Later, someone tells her, "You should be more confident. You're so smart." She nods, but inside she breaks because she knew it, but didn't allow herself to shine. For her, being kind meant not seeming arrogant, not causing discomfort, not standing out too much. And this doesn't just happen in the office, it happens at home, with her partner, with her family. A woman who cooks even when she's exhausted, who says, "It's fine," when it's not, who keeps quiet to avoid conflict, who asks for permission to be herself. All of these are part of the same mask, a disguise of kindness that is often just fear of no longer being loved. But the most dangerous part is that this disguise becomes so much a part of her that one day it's hard to distinguish it from who she truly is. If what you do out of love or fear of losing love. Benítez has said that there are forces that manipulate reality without us seeing them. Emotional programming is one of them, invisible, silent, but profoundly powerful. And the more a woman feels obligated to be kind, the further she drifts from herself. Now, I'd love to hear from you. At what moment did you realize that being kind was dimming your light? Leave your experience in the comments, because every shared story opens the eyes of another woman who is still silent. But over time, that kindness stops being protective and begins to break you on the inside. There's a breaking point. It doesn't always announce itself beforehand. Sometimes it's a minor argument, a hurtful comment, one more moment of being overlooked. But something inside clicks, and you can't keep pretending anymore. That's the day you stop staying silent, and everything changes. For years, many women have been taught not to make waves, not to complain, to endure, because that's just how life is. And while outwardly everything seems calm, inside, the body starts to scream. First, with insomnia, the mind won't shut off because there are too many things left unsaid. Then, with anxiety, a hazy feeling of teetering on the edge of something, unsure of what it is. Next comes tension, stiff shoulders, clenched jaw, a chest so tight it feels like the soul is shrinking to avoid taking up space. The body speaks, it always has. But when it's trained to stay as silent as the mouth, it starts to break down. Tata Benítez has written that what's invisible often precedes the visible, that there are parallel realities shaping what we think we understand. This applies to the emotional world too. Stress doesn't come out of nowhere. Pain isn't just physical, it's the reflection of everything that's been suppressed. Every time you wanted to cry, but smiled instead. Every "I want to leave" swallowed by an "I'm fine." Silence is a socially accepted, even applauded form of self-violence, but it's still a wound that opens from within. However, something shifts the day a woman admits she's tired of pretending, of pleasing, of staying silent. That day, something awakens. And it's not anger nor hatred, it's strength. True strength, the kind that doesn't need to shout but no longer hides. Picture this. A woman has been in a relationship for years, always yielding, always doing the right thing, always silencing her needs so the other person wouldn't feel uncomfortable. One night, after an especially exhausting day, her partner makes yet another condescending remark. She doesn't explode, she doesn't cry. She just answers, "I don't want this anymore." And she gets up. No drama, no justifications, just truth. That moment is so simple and so powerful, because the silence that once protected her no longer serves her. Now, she protects herself with her voice. Sometimes, change doesn't arrive with grand declarations. It comes with small acts of authenticity, saying no, asking for what you need, setting a boundary, choosing silence, not out of fear, but for peace. The body notices. It begins to sleep better. Anxiety eases, the muscles relax. And inside, something settles. Because when the mouth opens to speak the truth, the body no longer needs to keep doing the talking. Benítez speaks of invisible forces that shape human experience. One of the most powerful is the unspoken word, but just as powerful is the one that's finally voiced. The day a woman stops staying silent, it's not that she becomes someone else, it's that she finally becomes herself. When a woman starts speaking her truth, there's no turning back. For centuries, women have been taught that an angry woman is dangerous, inappropriate, out of control. You're overreacting. Stop being so dramatic. You must be on your period. Anger, when it appears in a woman, is immediately invalidated, ridiculed, punished. It becomes a social sin, because an angry woman is a woman who has stopped being manageable, who has stopped being kind, and that makes people uncomfortable. But what if I told you that anger is not your enemy? What if, instead of fearing it, you started listening to it? Society has distorted the true message of this emotion. Anger isn't destruction. It's contained wisdom. It's fire that signals. It's a compass. When a woman feels anger, it's because something has been crossed, a limit, a sacred space, an inner truth. And if that anger is repressed, it turns into illness. But if it is honored, it becomes transformation. Tata Benítez speaks in various texts of the sacred disguised as chaos, experiences that appear dark, erratic, destructive, but, in truth, contain a deep, initiatory, spiritual message. Such is feminine anger, a sacred energy disguised as fury, a call to wake up. From a young age, many women learn to anesthetize that fury, to laugh when they want to scream, to say, "It doesn't matter," when, in reality, it hurts. And they do it so well that there comes a time when they no longer even recognize they are angry. But the body knows, the heart knows. Something inside keeps beating strongly, because unacknowledged anger doesn't disappear. It accumulates. It turns into sadness, into apathy, into disconnection. But the day a woman allows herself to feel her anger without guilt, something sacred happens. It's not an uncontrolled explosion. It's not violence. It's clarity. Well-channeled anger doesn't destroy. It reveals. It shows you precisely what you're no longer willing to tolerate, points out relationships that no longer honor your essence, reminds you of your value, of what you deserve, of what you refuse to negotiate. It's no coincidence that an angry woman is feared, because an angry woman is a woman who has come home to herself, who no longer explains, who no longer justifies herself. And in a culture that prefers women to be docile and adaptable, this is subversive. Anger, when listened to with an open heart, becomes an ally. It teaches you to set boundaries, restores your voice, invites you to protect your energy as an act of self-love. It's not about shouting at the world. It's about stopping the silent scream within yourself. Benítez suggests this, speaking of invisible dimensions that act beyond apparent reality. Anger also lives on that plane. It's a force we cannot see, but one that pushes us to break what no longer serves us, to free what has been contained, to build from truth. When you stop fearing your anger, you realize it's not a monster, but a teacher, an ancient, profound voice that's yours. If this message stirs something within you, let it flow. Don't suppress it. Don't judge it. And if you know someone who needs to hear this too, share it. Perhaps in that bottled rage lies a new freedom waiting to be born. Stopping being nice isn't cruelty, it's truth. For generations, the ideal of the good woman has been venerated. The one who's always willing, who smiles even when exhausted, who listens without interrupting, who accompanies without questioning, who loves unconditionally, even if it means betraying herself. The good woman is passive, sweet, sacrificial. She's the one who doesn't bother, the one who waits, the one who sustains. And from a very young age, many women learn that this is the right path, the accepted path, the safe path. But being good was never about you, it was about others, about how to fit into a structure that relies on your silence to sustain itself. The myth of the good woman is a trap disguised as virtue. It presents itself as love, but is control. It masquerades as generosity, but is submission. Because to be good, according to imposed rules, you must reduce yourself, dull your emotions, soften your words, limit your desires. You must shrink yourself to avoid discomfort. And that shrinking is not harmless. Its cost is high, invisible at first, but devastating over time. Imagine a woman walking down the street with the flawless smile of someone who's always okay. No one notices the trembling in her hands. No one sees the grinding of her teeth when she recalls a conversation she didn't dare to have. No one hears the screams echoing inside her every time she says yes when she wants to say no. On the outside, everything seems fine. Inside, she's falling apart. Because being good, when it means denying your truth, isn't goodness. It's abandonment. It's a subtle form of disappearance. Benítez speaks of hidden realities, of unseen forces that shape the visible world. And this is precisely what anger reveals. What happens with this conditioning operates from the shadows, through inherited phrases, invisible models, unquestioned beliefs. It shapes you without your noticing until one day you no longer know who you are outside the character you created to survive. But something changes when you decide to stop being good and start being whole. Whole with your light and your shadows, your sweetness and your fury, your tenderness and your strength, your ability to nurture, but also your right to say enough. Being whole is not the same as being perfect. It's being real. It's about stopping the need to fit in and beginning to inhabit yourself. And when a woman allows herself to be authentic instead of merely acceptable, the world doesn't fall apart. On the contrary, for the first time, it becomes real. The voice changes, the body relaxes, the gaze becomes steady, because you no longer act out of fear, but from your roots, from who you are, not from what is expected of you. It's not easy. Guilt appears, and doubt too, because the entire system is designed to reward women who sacrifice themselves and punish those who choose themselves. But beyond the noise of the external world, a profound calm begins to grow, a peace that isn't earned through approval, but born of meeting your own truth. Being good was the mask, being whole is the face. And once you show it, there's no turning back, because you no longer need to fit into spaces where you don't belong. You no longer need to ask permission to exist, because who you are already is enough. Moreover, you discover something even deeper. You are not alone. Redefining the sacred doesn't always require incense, temples, or prayers. Sometimes what's truly sacred occurs in the everyday. In the exact moment a woman decides to speak with her own voice without asking permission. In the instant she says no and doesn't feel the need to justify it. In that small act of courage, which may seem simple but actually represents centuries of breaking away from the mandate to please. For too long, spirituality has been associated with submission, obedient sweetness, a false peace that excludes intensity. But there is another way to connect with the sacred, one that is born from fire, not the fire that burns, but the fire that transforms. That fire lives within every woman and, because of fear, education, or societal systems, has been contained, minimized, ignored. Benítez, in many of her texts, speaks of the invisible that sustains the visible, of hidden dimensions that live deep within the human being and, when activated, reveal a greater truth. That internal fire we speak of is not rage or resentment. It is essence. It is vital energy. It is the part of you that refuses to die, even when everything around you insists on extinguishing it. Recovering your voice is not simply about speaking louder. It's about speaking truthfully. It's allowing words to come from the center of your chest, not from the fear of being a bother. It's looking at someone without lowering your gaze. It's letting go of the need to soften every phrase to avoid seeming intense. Above all, it's about stopping the betrayal of yourself in every silence imposed to be accepted. Because this too is sacred, saying no and feeling peace, setting a boundary and sleeping calmly, stopping the need to explain why you walked away, why you didn't answer, why you no longer smile at everything. There is a powerful image that sums it up. A woman who, for years, greeted with an automatic smile. A smile not born from the soul, but from the habit, from the mandate to be polite. Until one day, she stops. Not out of hostility, but out of truth. And in that silent gesture, something heals. That is the new spirituality, the one that doesn't kneel but straightens, the one that doesn't silence but sings, the one that doesn't diminish itself to appear as light, but embraces its shadow too. Being fire doesn't mean destroying, it means purifying. It's burning away the layers of falsehood that surrounded you. It's illuminating from within. It's deciding to stop living with a dimmed flame just to avoid bothering others. The micro actions matter. It is the silent revolution. Choosing not to respond immediately to a message that demands your attention. Walking tall even if you're trembling inside. Deciding not to attend a place where you no longer feel welcome. Taking a deep breath before saying, "I don't want that for myself," and standing firm. In the midst of all these decisions, something profound happens. You begin to recognize yourself. You realize you've always had the strength. You were just taught to fear it, to hide it, to disguise it as obedience. But the fire doesn't disappear, it only waits. And when you finally give it space, when you let yourself burn without guilt, it doesn't destroy you, it revives you. Because being yourself, without filters, without excuses, without disguises, is sacred too. And when this happens, something quiet yet radical begins to shift. The breaking point is liberating. You stop acting in order to be loved, you stop reshaping yourself to fit into the desires of others, to belong. The point of no return arrives when you finally understand that the love that truly matters doesn't depend on your behavior, but on your authenticity. True love doesn't lie in pleasing, it lies in simply being without excuses, without masks. In that moment of transformation, you stop seeking constant approval. You stop believing that, to be loved, you need to be someone you're not. Real freedom comes when you allow yourself to be you, without asking for permission. You're okay, even if it makes others uncomfortable. You're okay, even if you're not liked. The love you've been searching for actually begins when you let yourself be, when you allow yourself to show up without the layers of perfection you were taught to carry. And most importantly, you realize that you are enough, just as you are, without needing to act in order to belong. Benítez often speaks of looking beyond the illusions that surround us. She invites us to see beyond the surface, beyond what society dictates as normal or correct. Similarly, she invites us to look beyond the illusion of being loved through performance, through fulfilling expectations. She urges us to question the social constructs that limit us, and challenges us to live honestly, to stop living to please and start living to be free. This is the true challenge, to undo the veils we've built around ourselves and stop living as though our worth depends on others' approval. On this path to liberation, the concept of being loved loses its weight. You cease doing things solely to be accepted, solely to receive the applause of the world. Instead, you start valuing being true to your essence, your values, and your truth. The love you need isn't found in others' expectations, but in your relationship with yourself. By letting go of the act of pleasing, you begin to connect with the deepest parts of yourself. There, You find the peace you've always sought, not in external approval, but in your authenticity. The question that changes everything is this: do you really want to be loved for what you're not, for what you don't feel, for what you don't think? Or do you prefer to be loved for your genuine self, even if that means not pleasing everyone, even if it means making others uncomfortable? The answer is clear. The price of authenticity is the discomfort of some, but that discomfort is a sign that you're living on your own terms, without yielding to external expectations. It's living unapologetically, without explaining yourself, for being who you are. This is the great lesson Benítez offers us. True liberation lies in looking beyond the illusions imposed on us, in challenging the invisible structures that dictate how we should be, and ultimately, in finding the courage to live without asking for permission. When a woman stops acting in order to be loved, when she stops reshaping herself to fit in, she begins to live authentically. And in that authenticity, an unstoppable freedom is born. Life stops being a performance and becomes an act of true creation. You become the director of your own story, the author of your own destiny. And the most beautiful part? You no longer need approval. You no longer need to fit into pre-established molds. You are enough, just as you are. And that is the greatest form of love, self-love. And in that moment, you understand. Healing doesn't always look like light. Sometimes it looks like fire. When a woman stops being kind in the way society expects, something profound begins to happen. Her world, as she knew it, completely rearranges itself. At first glance, this process may seem destructive. Some relationships break, certain circles dissolve, and what once felt stable begins to crumble. But what's truly happening is a deep transformation, a reconfiguration of her being, her priorities, and the way she relates to the world. The first change is external, visible to those around her. People who were once accustomed to her accommodating behavior, her constant availability, and her unquestioning yes, start to notice that something has shifted. Suddenly, she no longer conforms to what others expect of her. She stops submitting to demands without considering her own well-being. She no longer allows herself to be manipulated by the interests of others, not even by those she loves or admires. As a result, some relationships grow strained, others fracture, and some even come to an end. This process of rupture can be painful. When you stop being the person everyone knew, you start to question even yourself. The farewells to old social or family circles can feel like a void, like the cutting away of what once seemed like an essential part of your identity. Yet, as those superficial connections dissolve, so do the external expectations, judgments, and impositions that conditioned her life for so long. While the external cost is evident, the internal shift is even more profound. When a woman relinquishes being kind in the societal sense, she begins to live with a peace she's never experienced before. She no longer feels the constant pressure of being the one who pleases, who welcomes, who always yields. The weight of forced kindness, kindness that does not stem from a genuine place, disappears. She is no longer the sacrificial figure, the one who doesn't know how to say no without feeling guilty. Instead, she becomes a woman who has control over her space, her words, and her boundaries. This new internal state is not just a feeling of relief, it's a feeling of strength. It's the power that comes from being rooted in her true self, from knowing who she is without the distortions society imposed on her. That internal strength doesn't manifest in shouts or aggressive rebellion, but in the calm that comes from knowing she has taken control of her life. The woman who once feared rejection or discomfort for her honesty now feels serene, firm, and clear. And that clarity is powerful. She is no longer lost in doubt or confusion. It's no longer about pleasing everyone. It's about being faithful to herself. This type of transformation isn't easy. It requires courage. Facing rejection, criticism, and the discomfort of others can be a challenging process. But that discomfort is temporary. It's the price paid for rebirth, for authenticity. It's a process of letting go, of releasing what no longer aligns with her true self. And while the journey may carry the weight of farewells or moments of loneliness, what happens is that she finds herself in a fuller, deeper way. When a woman stops being kind in the sense of constantly pleasing, she is reborn. She is reborn with her own voice, firm boundaries, and a clarity she never knew she possessed. She no longer limits herself to being a shadow of what others expect of her. She becomes the protagonist of her own life. In an act of self-love, she starts claiming what's hers, her time, her energy, her inner peace. And when she allows herself to be true to herself, her power amplifies. It's not about being harsh or insensitive. It's about knowing where her boundaries are and honoring them. It's about recognizing her own worth without relying on external validation. This process of rebirth is freeing. Although the world around her may seem disordered at first, she knows she's rebuilding her life on stronger foundations. Foundations of authenticity. Foundations that won't crumble with the first gust of wind. The woman who no longer acts to be loved, but acts from her inner self, does not fear change. On the contrary, she embraces it, knowing that every step toward authenticity is a step toward her true freedom. By the end of this process, she finds herself whole, not because she's earned everyone's approval, but because she's found her true self. Her external world may have rearranged itself, but deep down, everything is in its place. And the most beautiful part? She no longer needs permission to exist. If you've made it this far, comment the word fire. That word symbolizes everything we have shared. If you comment, I will send you a special greeting in the next video. Within you lies infinite power waiting to be discovered. So, breathe, connect, and awaken. See you in the next one.